Tuesday, September 12th, and welcome back to school. I hope it's been welcome back. Thank you for all you do, because I know many of you work tirelessly through the summer to produce this plethora of documents we have in front of us tonight. So thank you. We're excited. We're always excited to see the curriculum updates and everything. At least I am. I'm a little geek when it comes to that stuff, but it's there. So before we get into the curriculum documents, I just want to talk to something that's actually not on our agenda, but it is on some agendas, another agenda tonight. And I just wanted to address it from the curriculum committee standpoint. And I did prepare a written statement, which is unlike me, but I felt I needed to put this together and not go off the cuff on this one. So bear with me. So in recent days, there's been some conversation on social media regarding adult community education. Monroe Township did offer some programming years ago, and it was stopped because it was costing the district money and cuts needed to be made. It seems that there may be an interest in it again. In preparation for tonight's meeting, I spoke to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Lehman about the possibility of a program. A program of this nature belongs as a discussion in the curriculum committee. It is also a topic that needs collaboration and discussion in other committees as well. It is a topic including finance, BG&T, policy, and even the LACE committee. However, prior to any discussion taking place by the board members, it is important that a review and research of the necessity and feasibility of a program of this nature is warranted. The administration would need to ascertain from the public if there is interest in participating in any programs, and an assessment needs to go beyond social media. I also want to state that our township public library system is currently offering many different educational programs, and I do believe our library representative is involved in many of those discussions of those classes. They also have many other resources that they offer to the community, along with our senior center programs that are offered at our senior center out on Halsey Reed Road, I believe is the name of the street. I'm confident that if our administration presents this as a viable option for our district in the future, this committee will review, along with the other committees, the information and act accordingly. I wanted to get that out there because has been a social media discussion, and I was part of some of it because I asked the community to bring forth their ideas, but I feel that there's it needs to come from the administration and this committee as a base for the education. So I felt it was important for me to make that statement in our committee meeting tonight. So our next, so I want to move on with the agenda unless anybody has any questions or concerns that they want to bring in. And again, this is my position as a committee of this chairman and after discussion with Dr. Lehman.
I just had a comment because you kind of already indicated that we've done this in the past and we stopped. I would love to hear from the administration in any future discussion why it was stopped before we resume.
I did get asked that question in my pre-meeting today, and I was told by the BA that it was not cost effective. We were not making any money. We were actually losing money because of the use of the buildings, having the buildings open, having to pay the janitorial staff, having to have, other things to take care of it. We just did not make any money back. And I do believe that that is part of the discussion that has been out on social media as a fundraising effort. But the discussion that Dr. Lehman and I had really centered around the fact that this would be a huge undertaking. And right now, I think that we have done some great work with the summer program, which we're going to hear all about tonight, and some other things. And I think that, unless the administration feels this is something we should move forward with, I'm putting this statement out there for me and the community and for that. So we have curriculum documents first up on the agenda tonight. And it looks like Dr. Roselle has the first set of them. So Dr. Roselle.
All right, I am going to start with world language. So for both documents, as we revise curriculum, there are new standards, and the push in world language studies is to study language through culture. So all of our revisions, this is not, the world language that we all had when we were in high school, where we're all memorizing grammar and a ton of vocabulary out of context. So we really teach language through through culture and personal connections. And we did have a standards update in 2020. So that is the impetus for these revisions. So we have Italian 2 honors. These units align with the 6 AP themes. So there are 6 units. And this is to begin preparing students who are taking world language in the honors track for taking AP Italian in the future. There are project-based authentic assessments. Students engage in authentic multimedia and cultural resources. They look at stereotypes in Italy of Italian people and the perceptions of Italians of areas of the rest of the world as well. The Spanish 2 curriculum is 4 units, again, authentic assessment. We engage students in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. There is parity between the Spanish 2 and the Spanish 2 honors courses because we never want students to be precluded from moving into an honors course if they choose to do so, if they have the prerequisite skills later on. Spanish 2 is primarily taken by freshmen, but there are some sophomores that take Spanish 2 as well. Any questions about either of those world language documents? Yes.
Spanish 2 is also taken by sophomores, that means they have, because I know world language is compulsory.
So we revised, a few years back, we revised our grade 8 curriculum to be Spanish 1. So Spanish 1 is the same, whether it's taken at the high school level. So let's say a student comes from Jamesburg and they're taking Spanish 1 because they didn't have the same Spanish. Or we have, I don't want to call it a cut score, but a recommendation of students who are in 8th grade. So for example, if they didn't really have a 70 or higher, it may behoove them to take Spanish 1 again. But the majority of our students who are freshmen are going into Spanish 2.
The freshmen have Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and honors Spanish
2.
2, not honors. There's nothing like honors.
There's no honors Spanish 1. Because I don't want to say that it is a remedial course by any means, but it is a beginner level course. And then we go from 3, 4, and then our highest level is AP in each of the languages that we have. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
All right, so language arts is next. So grades 6, 7, and 8, the entire middle school language arts curriculum was revised this summer. So we've taken a couple of years, really, even before COVID, to begin getting feedback from teachers, looking at our NJSLA data. We didn't have that data for a couple of years, but we did have that again available this year, looking at our MAP data. And seeing where our students' areas for growth might be and where they are really strong, making sure that we reordered a couple units and that we have a balance between genre-based units, for example, a historical fiction unit, as opposed to a thematic unit, such as social issues and social justice or something like that. Fiction and nonfiction are balanced as the standards require in grades 6 through 12. Students also engaged in developing not only written work, they're also using their speaking skills and their multimedia skills. So there are assessments that ask them to lean into multimedia and really engaging them in those career readiness, life literacy, and key skills standards. Students work independently as well as in book clubs and whole group, whole class with tests as well. Our teachers really did collaborate throughout last year. We had a collaboration document where they looked at their assessments, the scope and sequence, so that everyone had input, even though the writing was done by 1 or 2 teachers over the summer. Any questions about 6 through 8? Yes, Ms. Bora.
Thank you. And because I've not read these documents often enough, and you said this is the first time you've done it in some years, right? All
Yes.
3 grades together?
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions and you can answer them
Okay.
together. So all teachers that teach that collaborated through the year
Yes,
with what they're getting from the classroom environment? right?
absolutely, yes.
Did we also factor in our standardized test results
Yes.
over the past few years?
Yes. So we only had really a year of NJSLA data, so
Yes.
students just took the second year. Our scores at the middle school are very good, particularly in writing and in seventh grade. They're very good. We also use our map data, and I'm able to correlate map data as well as the NJSLA data. So we were able to look at students' reading levels, and when we make suggestions for tests, taking those things into account as well. Also students' interest, we do interest surveys and student feedback during units as well.
So when does this new revise, it's already in effect this year? This new-
Once it's board approved, yeah, because these are really revisions, they're tweaks, it's
Nothing
not a
changed.
brand new, no, it is not a brand new document that no one has ever seen before. We may have moved a unit that came later in the year to earlier in the year so that students had more nonfiction before NJSLA. In one case, we kind of cut out a fifth unit that was in grade 6 because nobody was really ever getting to it. And that allowed us to put an extra week of instruction into our other units. So revisions like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so you prompted a question for me.
Yeah.
So actually, I have two questions. So
Okay.
the question you prompted was, so the unit you removed, we don't need to learn that, what?
No, so it was the language arts standard spiral. So we have literary text, we have nonfiction literary text, we have fiction text. Those spiral through, and what we were finding was a lot of what we would have done in that, kind of 3-week June unit, when students are on field trips, they're going to graduation rehearsals, they're doing all these other things, that was better spun into those other units. So for example, there was, in 6th grade, it was a drama unit. Well, what we did was we took drama and elements of those readers' theater and we wove those into the other units so that we added that text type into those other units instead of it being a standalone when students may have been missing it or we weren't getting to it as well as we could have.
Okay, so then my other question that I wrote down was, you said that fiction and nonfiction are balanced throughout. So explain to me what that means.
Okay, so for example, let's say there is a historical fiction unit. What students are reading is fiction, but we spend the first couple weeks of that unit doing a lot of background building. If students are reading about a particular time period, they are in France during World War II, there is a lot of background information, vocabulary that has to happen to give context to that. All of that is nonfiction. Then students will read that work of historical fiction. Then they're going into other nonfiction texts to create a research project about that, some aspect about that time period, so that everything is really woven together.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay.
All right, still me. Next is, I'm very busy this summer, not as busy as the writers were though. Language Arts 3 Honors, which is a British and world literature focus. This is a balance of traditional literature and contemporary texts. So some of the revision was to incorporate more contemporary texts and more perspectives, because sometimes what can happen with a British literature course, that canon is so large, is we lean way too heavily into that British literature and we don't get the perspectives from around the world. So there are 4 units. The first is heroism and courage. The second is power and tragedy. Third is romanticism and relationships. And the fourth is identity and understanding. Again, fiction, nonfiction, woven throughout traditional works such as Beowulf, Oedipus Rex, Macbeth, Pride and Prejudice, but then contemporary iterations of these texts. And also students emulating these forms of text. So that is the Language Arts 3 Honors. Any questions there? Perfect. And the last is AP Research. So I brought AP Seminar. I can't remember if it was in August or July. AP Research is the second course in the AP Capstone program. So in the series, students take AP Seminar first, and then the culmination of the capstone program is through AP Research. This course focuses on 5 big ideas. Students question and explore, understand and analyze, evaluate multiple perspectives, synthesize ideas, and team, transform, and transmit information. So those guiding big ideas are for seminar and for research. Students will go through the academic research process. It is rigorous, very similar to what a master's thesis would be. And this course came about through collaboration between the College Board and higher education and the workplace, where they felt college graduates did not have adequate academic research and writing background. So they developed this series of courses. We brought this to Monroe because these are huge skills for students and will absolutely give them a competitive edge. So this course culminates in a academic research paper of 4,000 to 5,000 words. That is worth 75% of their AP score. And a defense of 15 to 20 minutes, that is worth 25% of their AP score. So it is not only the writing skills, the research skills, ethical research skills, but it is also their ability to orally speak and defend these ideas. They respond to questions from a panel to be able to defend their work. We are really looking for students to engage in scholarly work, employ research practices, understand the different types of research that they can engage in, and just really be prepared for that level of academic discourse in higher education.
Ms. Moore.
I have a lot of questions about this. I just want to understand it better.
Absolutely.
So the capstone, I don't know what to say. The capstone
I can explain it.
is 2 AP classes, right?
It's two, so students can earn what is called an AP capstone diploma. So the capstone program consists of 2 courses, AP seminar and AP research. Students need to score a 3 or higher in both of those courses, and they need to score a 3 or higher in at least 4 other AP courses throughout their high school career. And they are then eligible for what is called a capstone diploma.
So there are 6 AP.
Right, so it's the capstone program, right, those 2 courses and then 4 other courses. So we typically encourage students to take AP seminar in their sophomore year, so they can take research in their junior year. These students will have concurrently also had those requisite other AP courses. When they apply to college their senior year, the Common App recognizes a capstone diploma as a distinguishing feature on the Common App. So that's kind of the sequence there.
New York has the Regents equivalent, it is very similar.
Similar, yes.
Very similar in the way. How long have we been doing that?
Yes, that was my next
I'm
question.
sorry.
This is going to be our 3rd year.
I was
So
just
we
curious.
began this program as a pilot with the STEM Academy students. 2 years ago, we were kind of coming out of COVID. We attended webinars. We had to apply to offer this program through College Board. So we did that, and we had our teachers trained. It's an intensive summer training. And the teachers who are teaching this absolutely love the content, and students, they are rising to the occasion.
So how many students in 3 years have we
Yes, that's-
gotten?
So
through?
last
Out of my
year,
mouth. Yes, ma'am.
so last year we had, I don't want to quote it, but I want to say we had 2 sections. We had about 40 students last year. If you want those exact numbers,
No,
email Dr. Lehman, I can give
idea.
them to you. But I know we have 83 students right now, and I know that because I
Sweet
needed to do a
stuff.
text, I needed to do an order for something.
Wow.
This year we have 4 sections, so we have about 83 students.
That
Yeah,
is
that's 2
incredible.
weeks, right?
That's all research.
All research.
Oh,
That
that's
is
a
all
lot of
research.
research.
I have another 4 sections of seminar. This course has, the interest in this course has really grown.
So the seminar I know is the preliminary one, but when they get into the AP research, do they get to pick their own topics? And
They are
then-
picking their own topics. They actually, they have freedom to choose their own pathways in seminar as well. But
Okay.
that is a little bit more scaffolded and contrived isn't the right word, but supported, where the resources are provided to them. There's a lot more, of a skeleton or a scaffold for students. When they get into this course, like I said, it's no different than developing a master's thesis. They need to hone their focus. They go through similar to an IRB process to make sure that there is an ethical application of their research, having their methodologies approved, all of those
83
things.
students doing that this year. That is incredible.
That's really good.
And it is a tremendous amount of work and dedication on the teachers' parts as well. The time that this takes,
Yeah, that's
I
1/6
really
of our
commend them.
graduating class. That's 1/6 of our graduating class.
That's great.
So this, and 75% on their thesis and that presentation. Does college board get involved or do our
Yes.
teachers do?
So it is split. The paper is scored by the college board. So it is submitted to college board, and they evaluate the papers. They're obviously transparent on the rubrics, and we go through the editing process with students and things like that. But there's only so much the teacher can do. They are not permitted to edit students' papers. They are not permitted to, and we agree to that ethical pledge. Their presentation is done locally. We develop a panel of 3, and that is 25% of their score. That is teacher scored. College board provides the questions that are posed to students, so that there is consistency across schools and equity in the questions that are asked. And there are rubrics based on student responses that we use to score those.
I just have one last question. Last one.
Go ahead.
Why are we discussing, you didn't revise this, right?
This is new. It's a new, so we had mapped the curriculum last year because it was the first year we did a curriculum mapping.
Okay.
And the curriculum was completed, the curriculum document was completed this year. It's written using the AP syllabus, which is a requirement, but this is the first year of the full curriculum in place.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome. Very exciting. No, yeah, no, it is very exciting. So, talking about the editing and all that kind of stuff, are the students allowed to use Turnitin?
They are required to use Turnitin by
Okay.
College Board.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's good to know. And the IRB process for their, when they're going through research, which can be quite grueling. So who does that for them?
We've kept that very local. It's
Okay.
been done by the teacher, so that is not, facilitated by College Board. The teacher has really, she goes through what are ethical research practices. All surveys are approved by the teacher. If there's anything, kind of
So it's
questionable.
one teacher, it's not a panel of
It
teachers?
is one teacher right
Okay.
now, the teacher of the course going through it.
Okay.
We don't have the full panel, but we have discussed if there are questions, what the process is. There were 2 times last year, the teacher reached out to me with surveys, to make sure that we're protecting student anonymity.
Yeah, got it. You don't have to say it again.
That we are following all board policies and procedures and things like that.
That's why I was asking if it was more than one person, because I think
It
with
is.
something like that, in my opinion, you would need more, you should
It
have more
depends
than one
on,
person.
not everybody's doing surveys, there are students who are doing, they're really just looking at information that is
Yeah.
out there as
Right.
opposed to anything that could be confidential or things like that as well.
It's just, Yep, every time you talk, you pique my interest, so I have to ask more questions.
Great.
Does anybody else have any questions, Carmen?
Yeah.
You're good, you're quiet, anybody? Supervisor, nobody else? Okay, thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So next up, Ms. Gaston.
Okay, kindergarten mathematics. So this summer, we're actually revising kindergarten through 5th grade. This is the first one that's gotten done. Next round, we're gonna have at least 2, maybe 3 more going through. A couple of the main revisions that the standards are making, and they're proposing, they're tweaks basically. They're taking the unit from the K-5 curriculum, measurement and data, and they want it to be measurement domain and a data literacy domain. And really the idea is to emphasize the data literacy, which is the computer programming component of it. There's the 2020 standards that go along with that. So from a kindergarten perspective all the way up, you can definitely add that in. Suggestions for the data literacy are basically about asking questions, collecting data, analyzing, interpreting, and then communicating about the data. So you might think, how can this be done in kindergarten? Well, it could literally be as simple as, we're comparing numbers of objects, and the recommendation at that level is no more than up to 10. So you might have 3 apples over here, and you might have 7 oranges over here, and it's really just the idea of comparing them. And that really is that. So it's getting them used to the vocabulary. In the last 7 years, since we've had the Envisions program, there's been a big emphasis on vocabulary anyway. In the documents, we have now added, across the board, there to be the tier 2 and the tier 3 vocabulary. I don't really think that's new for the teachers. It's new to add that into the document, as remember, these are the keywords that you're going to focus on. But it does help that going through. The other big, I don't want to say change, tweak to the standards that they're proposing. It's a very, very minor thing, but it's a mindset. And it's taking the word fluency out, and instead of fluency, replacing it with accuracy and efficiency. And so you might think it's the exact same thing, but really what it's doing, it's taking out the timed speed component of you have to be, like the mad minutes and things like that. So yes, you're supposed to be efficient and you're supposed to be good at it, but it doesn't matter if you do something in 60 seconds versus 65 seconds.
Way better.
So, yeah.
Can I get it?
So
Come on.
they had fluency, then they took it out, and then they realized there were issues, they put it back in. So this isn't really, I don't think these are major mind changes. I think they're just really tweaks to what they have going through. The other thing that's big in the standards is really, and I think we've done a good job with this anyway, is including the application component of it. But again, it's through the data literacy, and it's also through bringing in with the new standards, just the idea of climate, and climate change. So again, I have been in numerous kindergarten classes where, they might be taking, having a chart of the weather of every day. And it might be something as simple as a cloud, a sun, or rain. Not massive rainstorms like we had the other night, but just kind of minimal. You could take that and they could chart that as a class. And it doesn't have to be that they know how to do a line or a bar graph, but it's just getting that idea going through. In that, the conversations can be talking about how we've had a lot of warm days or we haven't. In the geometry unit, it's one of the suggestions is that you could be talking about being under tents and being under umbrellas. And you bring in the science and the social studies component of that as well. I think elementary teachers do that by nature anyway. I think they really kind of combine them because they're teaching all of the students, all of the subjects, but this is really emphasizing it within the documents. So some of the big things that I've had add into the documents are things like that, but very, very specific examples. Math workshop has been used in the far majority of the classes, but not just say, oh, let's have stations. I said, for each unit, give suggestions. What can you have? It doesn't mean that it has to be the only thing they do, but the idea, I always say, if you're a brand new teacher to this, whether it be the first time teaching kindergarten or the first time teaching, you just have a go-to of different things to do. And then with that, the technology, also the same idea. In each unit, I wanted specific examples and cleared through what we allow and we know within the district, but some suggestions that maybe parents might want, or they might want within the classroom if they're using iPads or Chromebooks or something like that. So it doesn't sound like it's a lot of tweaks, but what I had them do while they were writing it is they put everything in red. Maybe I should have done different color, not so bold, but it was bold green. So I could really see what they added and what was emphasized. And it really, truly, I kid you not, the documents are almost double in size because of the detail that's put into it. And the idea of these are real suggestions going through. But kindergarten curriculum, it's not easy to do in our district because there's a lot, but I have to say they do it and they do a really, really good job of it. I think they really emphasize it going through. And other than that, the last key thing that I just wanted to emphasize real quick is we talked about the real world scenarios, the math workshop, and the unit. So that's pretty much it. Anyone has any questions?
Go ahead.
And my question is to both you and Dr. Rosell, because we're discussing kindergarten curriculum. We are one of the few districts left in the state that are running kindergarten. So how are we doing? Are we making any adaptations in our curriculum to ensure that our kids are not getting short enough the stick just because the hours are less? Are we able to do that? Are we getting creative just because we don't have enough time with them?
So I can speak for them out. They get through the curriculum. They do. And when we started this, we've had some of our top teachers kind of work through it and pace it going through. Do they get the time to embellish on it? that's a little bit different, but actually getting through the curriculum, they do. And you can tell because when we have the first and the second grade, and we don't start NJSLA to the third, but we're up to pace with that. I think some of the things they don't have is some of the downtime and some of the exploration time to the same degree, but they do get through. You know, I, to this day, my son is 26, and I remember he would come home from kindergarten and say, why do they have toys in the class if we're not allowed to play? And it's because there's not that downtime in the 2.5 hours. But I think they put a big emphasis on the math and the language arts because of their key, but.
Mrs. Scurvy has a question.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make a comment. If you talk to some teachers, I did, especially in Edison, where they just implemented it. That was one of the questions I asked a kindergarten teacher there, was about what increases in your curriculum. And it wasn't, they changed the curriculum. What they
Okay.
called it was more meaningful play. So it was having more time,
Which is so important, you're right.
downtime. It wasn't an expansion of the curriculum.
Okay.
So it's not like our students are missing out on learning the curriculum. They're missing out on these extra hours of meaningful play.
Well, that is
Well,
so
do they get
important.
specials in gardens? Music, art? Yeah.
They go to library, they do.
And they do all those things,
Yeah.
but, you know, like I said, with what Mrs. Kirby was saying, it's the idea you can learn it and then you can really apply it and do even more deeper. You just don't do it as deeper, though.
No, but it's good to know that from a curriculum perspective, our children are getting it. It's just, you're right. The
And with
other
our-
aspect is important.
With our new language arts program as well, we did training specifically with kindergarten last year, where the consultant who came in with our new program talked to teachers specifically about the adaptations that can be made through a half day, because it is designed for a full day and where some of that can be made. But the language arts program also is layered in with science and social studies. So the teachers are able to hit those standards through the literacy program as well, which saves them some time during the day. And Ms. McLeod and Ms. Dross did a lot of work to do crosswalks between those standards and the programs that we can roll out to those teachers as well. But Ms. McLeod, when she presents the documents, will elaborate on that.
Thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
All right,
Ms. McLeod, I think you're up.
okay, I'm going to be submitting and discussing the remainder of the documents, which would be kindergarten, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 5. So I can talk a little bit about the kindergarten as well. So again, Savas provided us with a very comprehensive scope and sequence. And the program, the MyView program, is what we're using from K to 5. The curriculum was written and aligned directly to that scope and sequence because it's research-based and it builds upon, each unit builds upon one another. It's genre-based and theme-based. So science and social studies is embedded within this entire program. And for kindergarten specifically, that's where we bought back some time for them within their day, because in unit 1, they're talking about the community. Well, that was one of the entire units of science, social studies. So now they're teaching social studies and ELA at the same time, which buys them a little bit of time back in their schedule to have that meaningful play. So each grade level document you'll see consists of 5 units of study that are aligned to the standards, and each unit is genre-based, integrates science and social studies into every single unit. The 6th week of every single unit of study is an inquiry-based project, and we are requiring the teachers to complete that with the students. It's scored with a rubric. The rubric's provided by Savas. And the beauty is that this can be differentiated and all students can participate and be part of that. Assessment is embedded into the curriculum. It's aligned and it's very differentiated for all of our learners, from our cluster students to our special education students. Formative and summative assessments are linked into the document, so you'll see throughout, there's live links in every single area, from assessment to technology to differentiation. Each unit of study focuses on reading, writing, phonics, and your phonemic awareness. So there is, all those foundational skills are embedded. We have spelling conventions that are also embedded into the writing units of study, which is part of the program. And again, just like math, we have academic vocabulary, which is highlighted throughout the entire program. So you'll see a very rich vocabulary kind of throughout. And then we're asking the teachers to use that vocabulary, keep them on their word walls, and continue to use that vocabulary within each unit of study. The differentiation and modifications are built into the curriculum. Our teachers did just a really fabulous job with that, you'll see. They've been provided with all of the appropriate resources so they can differentiate for all of our learners. And the tech links are there. And there's an entire section of technology in every single grade level with live links. And there is a Savas Realized platform that goes along with this. So any resource that they have on paper, they also have digitally, and all of the assessments can be given digitally and be modified for all of our students. So the curriculum documents, they did a great job. They took all of this and put it into the document so that it's very friendly for our teachers to use moving forward. Any questions?
So I have a question before I open it up to others. So you mentioned a few times about aligning the curriculum and the standards for all learners. And you talked about resources for differentiation. So can you give us some examples of what those resources would be that a teacher would have to be able to do that?
So every teacher was provided with leveled readers within the classroom. Our special education teachers, self-contained resource and ICR teachers are provided with wealth of levels, like an entire bank of readers that goes into the library where they can share and sign them out. So if they have students who are reading at a higher level, they can go there. Our cluster teachers can go there and grab readers. We have a language awareness handbook that has already modified lessons for our students. They also have something that comes along with the program. It's called My Focus. So any student that's on a tier of intervention and maybe is struggling a little bit, the interventionists have all of the various levels of My Focus to use with their students. And it is not a program where you open it up and you turn the page. If they target or if they find that a student's struggling within fluency, comprehension, any of the foundational skills, they find that in their My Focus, there's an actual lesson there so that they can target that weakness within our student. I'm forgetting a lot of the resources. We have the main reader, which I think I mentioned last time. It is a rigorous program, which I think is fantastic. All of our students are being exposed to that text before we modify and accommodate at all. So everyone is getting their grade level text. And then we move into modification and accommodations and we help the student get through it that way. But Dr. Roselle was sure to she made sure we have all of the resources that go along with the program, even before I came into this position. And for our self-contained classes specifically, we're housing a wealth of materials in the libraries. They sign them out, they use them, they bring them back, and they share the various levels, not to mention having materials in the room as well. So, it's
Thank you.
really a nice program.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Mrs.
It would be
Skirby first.
unfair, no, it would be.
Mrs.
unfair
It would really be
if I
unfair.
didn't ask.
So, absolutely.
Like, you don't like me.
Mrs. Skirby go first though. because
Yeah, sure.
I just had one question with the third grade. I know in our last meeting, I think cursive writing came up at one point, and you
Yep.
said it was in the third grade curriculum. I didn't see it in.
It's
the
not in
document.
third, it's in the second. They
It's in-
moved it to second. So kindergarten and first will be teaching print. Kindergarten first, second grade begins with print and ends with cursive. And then third, fourth, and fifth just reinforce throughout. It's
So
built
what
in,
about if we moved it now to second, the second graders, and last year going into third, will not have.
so we made sure that this year we're supporting that with materials outside of of my view, so that there is no gap there. And then moving forward, everyone should have it through my view, and they can pull that directly from the digital platform. And like I said, it has the same old school, lines and worksheets so that they can practice all of their letters and all of the cursive will be taught so that everyone can sign their name on a document moving forward. Because I think that is important too. So it is there, and we're definitely filling the gaps so that everyone will have it.
What about follow-up questions to that?
Yeah.
So, what's the research that supports moving it down to second grade? Because the fine motor skills that are required to write with script is, bodies haven't changed. So where does that come from, that these kids are gonna be able to, from a fine motor skill perspective, be able to be successful at cursive writing in the second grade?
I'm not sure I can address that. I don't know their reasoning. I did have the same thought as you, which is why I think in third, fourth, and fifth, they do provide the anchor charts there so that they continue to reinforce that. The second half of second grade is just an introduction to the cursive, the practice of the cursive. A lot of the teachers did express that some of the students were still learning to print. And we explained that that could be the carrot that you dangle. If you're getting your print, you move into cursive, and if not, we'll continue to reinforce that in third. We have control over the program. So we're not saying you stop at the end of second and you don't teach it anymore. You continue to
So how are we
reinforce it.
supporting that as we move forward? Because I think that we should have the answer to that, know why we moved it down to a lower age group to do that, knowing what and this is my clinical background coming in, right?
Absolutely.
So, developmentally, kids aren't really ready for that. Dr. Roselle, you look like you're about ready to explode. So if you'd like to answer that question.
no,
are you okay? All right,
It's the program that did it.
okay.
We're
Yeah.
reinforcing it by giving access to third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers in Realize in that platform to all of the workshops. So when they come in third, we're not cutting them off. We're telling teachers, you continue to reinforce the print, the cursive throughout.
Reinforce but not teach. So that's
Where
a
is it in the?
question. I just feel like.
So, and again, I just want to clarify too, we're not taking time out of an ELA block to teach handwriting. It is something that we embed in our do nows, our morning meetings. We use those 10, 15 minutes to reinforce there. We send those sheets home. That's going to continue all the way through. We've sent emails to teachers about that already, starting last year. So it's not a cutoff at the end of second and we're like, you're done. It's going to be reinforced. It's the program that pushed it out in K1 and 2. We're moving it throughout. The worksheets, they were given to the teachers all the way up to 2. We made it available. We made playlists for them, we call them, in Realize, so that all the way up to 5, they have access to that.
So are
So-
we having that, so my next question is, so are we having the students also learn how to read cursive? Because I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge fear, and this is probably unfounded or just a little irrational, but I have a huge fear that students who were taught from, my kid's grade, because I only had one student out of 4 that was taught how to write in cursive, and they can't read a note I wrote, right? So if they can't read a note I wrote, who's gonna read all of our historical documents? Who's going to be able to read all of those things that were written by all of those folks that formed where we are and what we're doing in years to come? So I just, that's just my, and maybe you call me irrational, call me whatever you want to call me, but it's just a thought that I have all the time, because I don't think anybody's sitting down, we have typed versions of a lot of this stuff, but sometimes it gets lost in translation, things don't happen. Being able to read historical documents to me is kind of an important thing.
Well,
I
I can
just
tell you
am
that all of
concerned
the
that we're
texts
doing
that
it.
they're gonna be exposed to are in print, so there's that. I know that teachers, when they write on the board, will write in cursive, and then the students are exposed to it that way and have to read it. I know even my son at one point came home back in the day in 4th grade and was like, the teacher wrote in cursive and I couldn't read it. And I said, what did she say when you said you couldn't read it? She said, you're gonna learn. And so we kind of learned our lesson there as a family. But now I think our teachers are doing the same. They're exposing their teaching. They all have the old school, you know, alphabet up where every letter is up. A lot of their nameplates even have it. They'll be teaching it now. It's going to be reinforced. There's exposure. And then a lot of our teachers, you know, they'll write on the board and there will be cursive up there. So they'll be exposed that way. But again, our reading block is only it's 2 periods. So we don't want to take 45 minutes to teach handwriting because then we're taking time away from reading and writing, but we are embedding it within our ELA instruction, our morning meetings, our do nows. So it will be there moving forward.
But but if we're not teaching it, who's teaching them?
Well, K to 2
Because I
is
can tell you
teaching
right
it.
now, so personal experience, at the end of 2nd grade, my son was mastering, I guess, his regular handwriting, right?
Mhm.
He was not allowed to start cursive because he wasn't ready for it.
Mhm.
Last year in 3rd grade, nothing came home, there was no introduction, there was no teaching. He has no idea how to write cursive at all, or read it. That was when it sparked, when it said it was in the 3rd grade curriculum, and that's why I read the curriculum document from front to end to look for it. But now we're saying we're not actually teaching it, because we're not taking time out of those blocks, but it's there in the room and they could see it, and when are they practicing it, when are they learning it?
They're teaching it, but they're not taking 45 minutes to teach it. They're going to have those worksheets. They're going to be doing it in morning meeting. They're going to be doing it as a do now, maybe in the beginning of your ELA block. A lot of practice that should go home, I would assume. If there isn't time within the day to expose them to it and continuously write in cursive. So K to 2 moving forward will have that embedded in their instruction. 3, 4, and 5 are going to continue to reinforce it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's unfortunate that there's so many students that
Will a
haven't
teacher,
been taught it.
oh yeah, will a teacher, so for example, I think, I could just sum up what I think they're trying to say is, the reinforcement is fabulous, but let's say you have 6 children in your class in the 3rd grade that did not, and I don't mean this year, because I know this year you're doubling it. Let's say 4th grade, let's go to 4th grade. 6 children in your 4th grade class that have not mastered it. Reinforcing is not enough. They need to be taught how to write in cursive. Is there that opportunity?
Yes.
That, I think that's what you're asking, right?
Okay.
But
yeah.
the opportunity at that point,
Well,
you
they
have to
taught.
consider, that opportunity is now that teacher saying, oh, I have 6 children.
Correct.
Can't write. I'm gonna go into that Realize platform, I'm gonna pull those worksheets, and maybe that's something I send home, or maybe that's something when we're doing silent reading and I have a quick group in the back
Okay.
of the room, I'm working on with that
Well, that's the
student.
differentiation.
That's
piece,
the
I think.
differentiation, but that's also, teacher-based, student-based, there has to be a lot of acknowledging that, oh, I haven't seen that student write, or maybe even saying, hey, you know, we kind of missed out on this. Would you mind covering this with my student? If someone's not recognizing that they're not
You know,
writing.
you need to have the communication piece
Right.
because it's not the, I don't want to say job. Yes, the parent would practice with the child at home, but it is the teacher's responsibility to teach it to them, and then the practice comes next. So even if it's 4th grade or 5th grade, it is what it is. We can't just say, well, we taught that in 2nd grade, so we don't do it anymore.
The only thing I will say though, in 3rd, not so much 3rd, 4th and 5th, there is any grade for that matter. We're never going to say to a student, you're required to write in cursive. Because that should be the option of the student. They would write, unless it's a cursive writing test, which no one's going to give any tests in cursive writing.
Okay.
But, you know, if they're writing a paper or if they're taking a test, they have the option to write in either or. So, you know, we have to acknowledge that as well.
Yes, go ahead.
What I'm hearing from this, and I didn't personally experience it, but I see the point here that what you're saying, Mrs. Cloud, it does depend on the teacher in the classroom, whether she's observing that and acting on it. But these curriculum documents that we prepare are more of a guideline that ensures that they've had that checkpoint. So would it be too much to ask that we put that somewhere in our third and fourth grade curriculum documents to, not as a grading aspect of the curriculum, but as a guideline for the teachers to incorporate that into their writing or, like you just, and one of my questions right now was that you mentioned that every 6 weeks is an inquiry-based
Inquiry-based project,
And
yeah.
I was gonna ask if that was new or if that was a cadence for previous curriculum documents.
That's actually new. That's actually new.
So the
Yeah.
opportunities like that where they could encourage
The
children
students
to,
to write.
and if we could write that as a bullet point, because now that becomes a guideline for the teachers to, a reminder for teachers that may, every teacher has a unique set of students every year, and their teaching style gets modified slightly based on who's in that classroom. So if you have 20 kids that are great in cursive writing, you wouldn't even think that 3 don't know it.
I
You probably
don't
wouldn't
know.
put that
I'm
focus.
gonna defer, because
That's
I don't
ready.
know if there's a standard that would
It's
handle
not
that.
in the standards.
It's not in the
So
standards.
that
That's
is
the
piece.
problem.
And when you talk about small group intervention, your students who may be lacking some of those fine motor skills, getting them to communicate in any way they can is important. If that's through print, the additional frustration of
Forcing them.
providing intervention for handwriting, which really is it is more of a motor skill than it is a literacy skill. That time for intervention, should that student need it, is better spent on actively reading or actively
Yes.
writing.
So then
And we have to be careful with CUSAC that we are not putting extemporaneous skills into our documents that are not reflected in the standards.
And that's a very valid point from a motor skills perspective. How about, the concern here was our kids will not be able to read. Can we incorporate that into?
So a lot of that also comes through the work of social studies and when we're looking at primary source documents. At one point, just food for thought, we had people who were able to read the hieroglyphics. We don't necessarily have people who are able to read those hieroglyphics now. We have annotations for those, we have interpreters for those. Anything that we do have in cursive in many ways has been digitized. We go to the National Archives to pull primary and secondary sources. We look at journals that have been published. Those primary sources have been digitized. And it's not that I don't think it is important for students to be able to read that. We have 90 minutes a day, we have 180 days, and we have standards and we have skills that students are assessed on state tests that we need for reporting, for federal and state reporting. We have to be judicious in how we are spending our time. And for a student who has all the pieces of the puzzle are together, we're gonna fine tune your handwriting and we're going to do those things. The reality is that sometimes students who might be struggling with the handwriting or not picking that up may have other gaps in knowledge or skill deficits that we need to ameliorate before we look at handwriting.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Anything else? Good? So. Mr. Rowland.
So I have 2 documents tonight. Both are coming out of the Family Consumer Science program and the Department for Careers Technology, specifically our Early Childhood Education program, which is entitled Working with Children at the High School. So 2 documents tonight, both are Working with Children 3 class, which is our final step before practicum, and then Working with Children 2 class, which obviously is the follow-up to our initial introductory course. Tonight, we're just talking about Working with Children 2 and Working with Children 3. Just for context, to give you an idea about the program's popularity, last school year, the guidance department at the Monroe Township High School reported that we had 407 requests total for a Working with Children program. And that's 20% of our high school enrollment, approximately. So just to give you an idea about the popularity of the program is an early childhood teacher prep program that's been in existence I want to say since at least the early 90s, probably sooner. We have teachers that work here that attended as preschool students, and it's multi-generational, and the program has evolved very nicely, along with kind of the evolution of our school district. Sadly, in 22, 23, we were only able to accommodate 20%, 57% of those 407 course requests. And that is simply because this is an absolutely facility and teacher-driven program. We only have one preschool here. I don't know if we're prepared to build another one. That's simply the program has to be capped because it functions in a ratio, a preschool to high school student ratio, 1-to-1. So in order that class would be absolutely chaotic if we lifted the cap on that class, which we actually have done over the years just to try to accommodate these runners, and the teachers have been fantastic in absorbing that inconvenience. So we have two classes happening at the same time. We have a high school class in which teachers are orienting their students on how to become early childhood education teachers. And then we actually have a functioning preschool that is occurring simultaneously. 2 shifts. The preschool is only 2 hours long. It is a free service that we offer our students, and we design it that way specifically because it is not a daycare center. We do not want parents dropping their children off just so they can run errands. We want them to drop them off so they can have an abridged learning experience that also serves as an opportunity for our high school students to get practical experience to determine whether or not they want to enter the wonderful field of education. Working with children 2 and 3 is not the final step in this sequence. We actually do have an option that functions as a branch of our work-based learning program, which is called teacher mentorship. If a student successfully completes working with children 3, they have the opportunity to work as a teacher mentor, normally with a former elementary teacher or middle school teacher of their own, where they will go serve as a student teacher and assist the teacher in many of the daily tasks, more so for exposure purposes. But over the last few years, as the program has improved, we have found that our host teachers throughout the district, including Jamesburg, we do place students in our Jamesburg district because many of our students obviously come out of the GMB or JFK school. We partner them up with some teacher, and they can get busy taking some of the things they learned in Ms. Silverstein and Ms. Scoletti's class and transfer it into a real life application. And it's a very popular program, which also successful students in the teacher mentorship program can earn 3 credits from King University upon successful completion of the course. This course increases in its rigor exponentially. And if you look at the way that we structure the sections offered for incoming freshmen or sophomores and working with children 1, we run 4 sections. We have 260 students enrolled in that class currently. In working with children 2, we break it down to 3 sections, and this becomes somewhat of a competitive seat acquisition, as we obviously can't accommodate all of their requests in the school. So we have very fair but explicit prerequisites and expectations for the students as they progress through the program. And the reason that we may hold a harder line on these courses, probably more so than some of the other electives in the department, is because these students are working with little children. So those are different variables that we have to take in mind when students are ascending into the next course of the sequence. There's a fully inclusive class open to all learning. But to the nuances and really the important parts of why we're here tonight, which is just kind of the structure of the curriculum and major changes since we've updated them last. These documents haven't been updated for 7 years. So they did not reflect the new student learning standards and career readiness, life literacy, and key skills. And one of the nice features about these 2 documents this year are the fact that we were able to use, and I thank to the supervisor team, we reconstructed our Atlas form to allow our teachers to kind of view standards and kind of connect them with some of the things that we would like to do when designing the units. We integrated the preschool teaching and learning standard, which is something that was never identified in our documents before, to help those teachers line up the high school class with what we want them to do with the preschool class. And obviously the social emotional learning standard from the state that came in 2017 were integrated along with all the tech standards. It's also important to highlight that there are national family and consumer science standards that are adopted by the National Association for Everything. But we do layer and supplement our curriculum documents with those national standards, but it's important to know that we are driven by the New Jersey student learning standards. In working with children too, The big difference from working with children one is that in working with children one, the students work in small groups with the student, and working with children two, it's our first opportunity to allow our high school students to begin working one-on-one with the preschool students, obviously along with the supervision of our staff. In working with children two, our students get their first chance to do lesson plans. And again, even when we teach our high school students to design lesson plans, we ensure that they are standards driven and that they are properly assembled, much like we would hold our teachers to the same expectations. A little bit more technology integration. We were able to acquire some new, pretty cool technology. And a lot of times the elementary schools are awesome in helping us with the preschool. We consult with the kindergarten teachers from time to time to keep us in line with what they're expecting. And working with children too is the first time we begin teaching the performing arts to the preschool students. Our assessment methods in working with children too start to crank up a little bit. We start to do more project-based stuff. We start to pick apart their lesson plan, and we actually start to conduct formal teacher observations, student teacher observations on them and give them feedback. Everything ranks up another notch in working with children three. So now we're down to one section in working with children three. So the proving ground really exists in the end of working with children two. And that's where we kind of find out, all right, who's here that really wants to go into post-secondary education, or who wants to pursue childhood education or secondary education, at college. And we really, and the guidance does an awesome job in conferring with the students prior to placing them. We are working with children students to very high expectations. The difference between 3 and 2 is that when the students show up in October, and they're going to be showing up in a couple of weeks, the preschool students will be able to want on the front end to get ready. They begin teaching immediately, working with children 3. So they're ready to go. Whereas our working with children 1 and 2 students, all of which interact with the preschool kids, we have to ease them into it. We have to make sure, first of all, they know how to behave. They know how to communicate. We actually will have them interact with the parents on occasion as they pick the children up. Sometimes when there's an issue or a conflict during the preschool class, which is obviously inevitable, we let the students monitor us on how we de-escalate, and then when appropriate, and if the parent is okay with it, we'll even let the student observe our interaction with the parent. One of the cool byproducts of this class is it really does create a nice environment in that classroom. Anyone that's walked through the Falcon Preschool knows that it is a safe space for all of our students, whether you're in the program or not. We have many alumni that come back, some of which are employed by the district currently or neighboring districts. And even the parents buy in, they become a part of our program as well. It's a free program, like I said. They are very much interested in how their children are doing, as most preschool parents are at that age. And we really leverage that to help support our teachers and give them a positive experience. One example of an assessment that we do in working with children 3, which I think is pretty unique, is that when we do legitimate teacher observations, when they go into their one-on-one kids. So we will actually meet, our teachers, I should say, will meet with the high school student, talk about the lesson, and we even model our approved teacher observation practice that we have here in the district, because we want these kids to have as authentic of an experience of what it's like to be, even some of the downsides and the challenges of being a teacher in 21st century society. And, the 2 teachers, Mrs. Scoletti, Christine Scoletti and Jody Silverstein, everyone around the district knows who they are because they pop into buildings to work with their mentorship teachers. And they designed both of these documents in tandem. They're 2 different teachers, but they operate as one. And that's the only way the preschool can function. They sit in there on their preps. At any given moment, you walk in there, there's 65 people in the room. High school students, preschool students, 2 teachers in para. And they make it work. And it's sad because we could probably double this program based on its popularity. And unfortunately, we can't do that, but they did a wonderful job. And in the curriculum document, you will see that they have identified explicit ways that they could differentiate the instruction to accommodate all learners. We do have, on occasion, students from our MD classrooms join us for meaningful learning experiences. And this program has, in collaboration with our Living on Your Own program, has spawned a spinoff, which is the latest installment of our inclusion electives, which is running this year. So very popular, and the return on it is excellent. There's college credit at stake. And, we just continue to refine the curriculum. And one of the big things that we've done over the last few years, which is unique, is like I said, is working with the kindergarten teachers throughout the district and saying, hey, what are you guys looking for preschool kids? They share the resources with us sometimes. I know you guys just got finished talking about all the new stuff you're bringing in, but historically, we work with foundation systems, in the past, and a lot of times, the teachers will give us leftovers. Many of the materials we get in there are donated toys and resources, so it's a pretty unique model that we have going down there, and, the only thing I wish I could do is cap their classes a little bit more to make it a little less crowded, but, we also don't want to turn kids away, so we try to really do as best as we can without, eating away at the utilities associated with the program.
Any questions?
How many preschoolers are in the classroom at the time?
Depends on enrollment. We're usually hanging between 16 and 18. That's our ideal number. Obviously, we have many more students in the class, but the optimal model, if you said, Zach, you can have your wish, it would be 16 capped high school students, 16 capped preschool kids. So you could have the one-to-one, just not the reality of the situation right now. But I don't think I could say enough. These teachers don't complain at all. These working with children teachers, and we have done everything we can to try to cram as many kids in there, and the program hasn't missed a beat. And they're also very cost conscientious. They're constantly out looking for donations and things like that, because they know the program was not designed to sustain this type of patronage. So we try to support it financially whenever we can.
And one more follow-up question, are these all general ed preschoolers or is the
No.
integrated program?
It's not some, we don't, put it this way, we've had all types of learners enrolled. We don't necessarily pull from an integrated program, but we're certainly not gonna deny anyone. We've had plenty of students when we've had to consult with, special education department. Again, many of these students haven't been classified yet or anything like that
Yeah.
because they're in preschool, and we do what we can. But we've had some challenges, but again, we are never gonna, unless a student is exposed to the risk themselves or other students, we won't turn them away.
Just a good confidence problem.
Yes, we just, 4 on
My
5.
senior, not a senior anymore, my son who just went to college at the start of the class, and I cannot say enough good things about it. And I've known so many teachers who teach in Monroe who've gone to Kaufman's Nest. So you're right, this program is really old, but only getting better by the day.
I want to say Sandy Rosenberg might have
Yes.
been
Yes, and
the
I.
person that started it, maybe even before then.
An excellent program. Our students are good.
Yeah, Sandy started it,
Sue
Sue
Krawcheck?
Krawcheck followed
Yeah.
after her.
It definitely has been in place since the 90s, I want to say. And it really has kind of followed a very similar model. All we've done is just kind of evolve our program.
That's great. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
It's a fantastic program, and I think it's a shining star in our district. We also think, that's my opinion. But thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And you, shall we give you the floor still? But I have to tell you, you have 4 minutes,
Oh,
because I still have a couple of other.
that's okay. I think I can do it. So,
At the table that.
and obviously what my gut tells me is that my goal, let me just preface this by saying this. My goal is this will be the last time we're going to call this summer.
Okay.
So, because I think the big takeaway that we have from this summer, and this will lead us into, is that I think that we're seeing that enrichment learning, which really, when we talk about year-round enrichment learning, it began with Ms. McLeod last winter, when we began offering enrichment modules in 0 period with STEM. And that kind of served, and the response to that served as the catalyst to a lot of our new programming that we launched this summer in our enrichment services. So let's get to it real quick, so I got 3.5 minutes now. So MTS Summer Season 3, that's what was kind of how we branded it, but we're talking about our summer enrichment program, which is targeted to learners entering kindergarten through grade 9. So we accepted incoming freshmen as well. Essentially, it was a program designed to offer extensions of our existing and new curriculum, to offer learning opportunities for students that maybe were denied access to these types of programs at other points in the school year, but also as a way to expose yourself to other types of learning, most importantly, 21st century learning that many students up until high school do not have access to. These programs were the product of programs that were developed in previous years using the ESSER grant funding. And thanks in collaboration to the supervisory team, we came up with a literacy program and a STEM program, which is now spawned into what we have as MTSD Summer Season 3. So we originated with 5 programs: STEM, literacy, band, theater, and I'm forgetting one, but cooking, well, it's new this year. So we added, we started with 4 programs. Yep, we added 5 additional this year. So our 4 programs were band, theater, literacy, and STEM. Now we had 5 additional ones this year. The new programs and systems, I'll jump back to that, but if you jump down, you can see to the programs offered. We tried to offer something pretty much in every content area. Every program was unique. in its scope and in its expectation. Several of these programs centered on computer science and robotics based on the demand and response from our community, but we also offered modules in the arts, literacy, performing and fine arts, and obviously culinary arts. We went into this blind, not knowing what to expect. This was the first year we were going to charge a fee. We tried to attach fees that would help us cover the cost of staff and the materials, but also supplement revenue so we could support some of our larger district initiatives, which are increasing in cost by the moment, it seems, without having to wrestle with the overall looming budgetary obligations that we have from our operational and facilities. On top of that, the difference between our program and some of the other programs offered throughout the summer, and I think what makes our program superior, is that our program is 100% unequivocally taught by certified staff, all of which are employed by the district. And so when you talk about 23 full-time employees employed by this program, specifically from our district, and all of these teachers were teaching courses that directly align to the curricular programs that they ran during the school year. So staffing was a big part of this, and that we also believe that that leads directly to the overall, what we believe to be favorable customer satisfaction that we received at the end of the summer. So that was kind of the foundation of the program. Now we needed to deliver something that we believed would be worth the cost to the parents. And we had to do it in a way that was fair and not in a manner that was going to be off-putting, given the fact that we do have some significant financial requests that we're going to be making of the community over the next 10 years as we evolve the school district. So we were very strategic in a way to try to create a program that was not going to harm the district's evolutions, but also support us in a very meaningful way. So here's the important part. The programs were received, they were populated, and they were able to run. We were able to highlight and employ and acquire assets that will be remaining in our district, and that will be durable assets, and they'll be utilized for years to come. And why this is important, because I'm sure many of the parents are wondering, what is the money what are we paying for, right, when we sign up for this camp? And the answer is this. We were able to acquire cutting edge resources, some of which weren't even brought into the school district until this September we had over the summer. On top of that, these are assets that we now own and that are already being distributed to the elementary schools and the middle schools for year-round usage. So we were able to onboard pretty pricey assets without having to go into our budget and abate any of the already existing monies that we would be asking for normally during budget philosophy. We were also able to cover the cost of all of our employees in Richmond. Included in that, which is not necessarily explicitly identified in this document, is that one of our other programmatic expansions took place in ESY, where we were able to take these programs, not only integrate them into the already existing ESY module to beef up that program a little bit, but in other instances, as we did at the high school, we brought the ESY students into our existing classrooms for fully inclusive learning opportunities. These are all programs that could not exist without the program fee. Some of the embedded value that may not be visible on this document. When we brought on these VEX IQ and these first Lego kits, and I would love to have another opportunity to talk about the first Lego League when we have more time. Our teachers would normally be sending them out at a very high expense to get training in some hotel conference room somewhere, probably not in New Jersey, right? I would contend that there's no better professional development that took place this summer when those teachers were in those classrooms learning these very highly complex computer science and robotics systems. We hired a second grade teacher, Ms. Miller, who's taught second grade elementary for the most of her career, and she was learning Python over the summer with robotics kits that weren't even available to the public yet. And she learned it, she taught it as a kid, and now she will take it back to second grade. There is value associated with this. And so while these program fees may feel like, hey, we're just going out to the public and asking them to pay for programming, we're a public school, but I want everyone to be very much aware of not only the revenue that was generated, but also the value that was pulled from these programs that will last in perpetuity. And these Lego kits are not going away. We brought in assets that we do believe align with our district goals and that we will continue to integrate them into the year-round programming. We have found that there is positive response across virtually every content area, and we did not have any difficulty staffing these programs. The reason why I bring this up is because summer staffing tends to be a challenge when launching summer programs. And in full honesty, we were probably overstaffed in many aspects of this. We do believe that there's viability in this program and that there's appeal for year-round programming. It would be my personal recommendation to explore immediate activation of year-round enrichment services following a very similar model, beginning as soon as hopefully this fall. And I've received countless inquiries, and that's pretty much the recap of the enrichment program. I did conduct a SWOT analysis. We don't have time to go through it right now. I was very honest. There were several operational inefficiencies that we need to clean up, mainly with staffing. None of these issues I do not believe would be we would be able to correct. I do think we have room for growth, whether we want to stay in this realm of just dealing with students. We did not invite students from other districts yet. And we currently do not have any high school enrichment program. So there is opportunity for growth, and I think there's certainly opportunity for refinement. And my guess is that we'll continue this, particularly when we get into the nuance of the programs and how it would potentially fit into an overarching curricular support system.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can do whatever.
I feel like that was a little rushed, but
I apologize, but there are.
I would encourage you to read through it, and then if you have
Yes.
questions, we can.
Yes, and I did ask my finance and I'll report at finance committee, I did ask for a balance sheet on the program.
Mhm.
So that won't be coming till October because of other things, but we'll talk about that in finance. So we do have, athletics.
Yes, so I'll be very brief. I submitted, this is gonna be discussed in finance, but I submitted two documents for two per diem athletic training companies. Right now, we have one athletic trainer in district who's gonna be serving as a backup for us, should we need any athletic training services if our athletic trainers are not around. However, if she's unable to cover, we do wanna make sure we have another backup to make sure that our athletes are safe and we have someone to take care of them. Out of the two companies, we have SD Game Day and Jag One Physical Therapy. My recommendation would be to go with SD Game Day. It's a company who I have worked with in my previous district as an athletic trainer. I think that their prices are fair, and I know for sure that the athletic trainers that they are bringing forward are ones that have already been vetted the same way that we would vet our athletic trainers and our staff. But I know will be discussed at greater length in finance, but I wanted to at least just mention it here.
Yeah, for those on the curriculum who did not, it's not in our curriculum document. It is in the executive content in the finance, so you can go look at those documents there. Just to add one thing, I asked a few questions today at my pre-meeting for finance, and we discussed, some of the vetting of the employees and everything. They go through the same rigor that any employee of ours would go through as far as, background checks and things like that. The language in the contract was a little fuzzy to me, but I was assured that it meets the muster of what we need to do here for our district. So I would like to support, please say your last name. Mr. Baradica's recommendation, once we get through the finance committee and, stuff, but I will bring that forward to them because I understand you won't be able to be with us. You may ask one really quick question.
So if only to make this as a backup, we do have enough
Yes,
athletic
yes.
trainers in school.
We have two athletic trainers in school, and then we have a district employee who's also an athletic trainer, who is our first line of defense there if we need it. And then if not, I will search out.
So this is just a backup.
Plan C.
Correct.
We-
just to
We've not
make sure-
had one in place so far.
Correct.
Okay.
And then,
This
second-
document we just got?
Yeah, so then the second thing, really quickly, I had a couple parents reach out to me, which is pretty common in athletics, asking if their athletes would be able to use helmets that they had purchased, that they had used through some of the youth programs for football. It is something that is pretty common in athletics. We see it a lot. The document that you see in front of you has been vetted by our insurance company as well as our lawyer. And again, essentially what we're saying there is the parents would be letting us know that, that they will be following specific rules that they would have to follow for the helmets that they're providing. This would be something that we would be managing out of our department. The helmets would have to be the same as the ones we have. They would have to be certified by the same entity that all of our helmets are certified by. And essentially, it comes up because some parents have purchased some helmets that are a little bit more expensive than the ones we purchased. So they feel as if those helmets are going to be, a little bit safer for their student athletes to use. I can guarantee that the helmets that we are using are extremely safe. We use probably the same type of helmet that a lot of NFL players are using and a lot of other schools in the state are using. However, there are some that are a little bit more expensive. This would essentially allow the parents to be able to purchase those helmets for their student athletes and use them.
Okay. Any questions about this?
I just have a comment. So we are providing the safety gear to our athletes.
Absolutely.
This is only if the parents want to go above and beyond and do it for their own.
Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. What we're providing our student athletes is extremely
Thank you.
safe.
I just have one question. So it says the helmet is new, never been used before. It's not a helmet that they previously used in a practice or a game?
So it would have to be either new or it would have to be recertified. You'll see on it that it has to be recertified. So if they have it recertified and it's up to date, then they would be okay to use it.
Okay, and our helmets, do we provide new helmets every year?
So we don't provide new helmets every year. The way that it works is all of our helmets are serviced at the end of the year by a company called Noxe. So they have to have a ticket at the back at the end of the year saying that they've been serviced. Every helmet is in circulation for a total of 10 years. Once the 11th year hits, it's considered non-usable anymore. So typically what we do is we never purchase all of our helmets at the same time. So we don't have to purchase all of them at the same time. But I know that at the end of the year, for example, this year, I believe we have to buy about 12 to 15 helmets. And it's just essentially a cycle. But yeah, but they'll be used for about.
But they're
10 years.
recertified every year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so ideally, once we get, it's like, let's say we have an athlete, once we know when they purchased that helmet, we'll know if it's within that time range for them to still be able to use it, yes.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay, so, then we have, alternate pathways.
I'll be really fast because I'm aware of the time. So
I am the chair of the finance committee, so we can start next.
fair enough. I just wanted to give a brief update. We are up and running with the alternate pathways program, which I'm very happy about. As of an hour ago, we have 136 seniors doing the program. And more will be joining tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day based off of the past week. So we're very happy about that. Things are running fantastically. We spoke at the high school and with Mrs. Chanley and Dr. Lehman. We are going to have a cutoff date for this marking period of September 22nd. Going forward for marking period 2, the enrollment period, now that we kind of have a grasp of how this is going to run, the enrollment period is going to be the last week of marking period 1 and the first week of marking period 2. So they will have 2 full weeks to register. Marking period 3, they're going to be back in the building for health. Marking period 4, same thing. Last week of marking period 3, first week of marking period 4 will be the enrollment period. And like I said, for currently, right now, we're giving them until next Friday to register. But this thing is spreading really quickly. The emails have been coming in. I do want to give tremendous shout out to Mr. Sean Field, who has been fantastic, who is the teacher that's overseeing this program. He's been working 7 days a week on this. So it's been great to work side by side with him and with the high school and with Dr. Lehman and Mrs. Chanley and Mr. Maralda on this project. So as it is a pilot, there are kinks that we're learning every day. There are things that we're working out, but every day it's going to get better and better. We're going to learn more and more and continue to improve this as we go. But we are up and running, and that was the goal for this year. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you for that data. That's some hot off the presses data. That's great.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Down to the.
Real time, real time,
Yeah.
real time, real time. Thank you.
Real time.
I think it's wonderful, and I
Yeah.
think it's
So excited.
true testament of the collaboration between you just coming on board, Dr. Higgins, Dr. Lehman, Mr. Chanley, the whole team,
No, it's very exciting.
putting this together, because it came up the end of the spring,
I
really.
mean, we decided like in
Well, we started doing that whole credit look at,
Right,
right?
yes.
Started looking at that, and we started,
giving
so,
opportunities
you
to
know,
kids.
So
I think the
it's,
board.
and I think it's fantastic that we have
No,
136 seniors all of a sudden.
Yes.
No, it's awesome.
Fantastic.
I think it's a great
Yeah.
testament to the working together
Mhm.
of the board and administration and the supervisors and everything. I think everything we do is a testament. I know we ask you a lot of hard questions, and, sometimes you get mad at us, and that's okay. I got 6 shoulders, I'll take it, but that's what I love about this committee, and I really do enjoy it, and I know it's an hour and 15 minutes plus
Hour and
some.
30.
Yeah, we could keep making it longer, we go on here, we could be here all night, but.
I take
this
the
is-
blame.
Well, yeah.
I just want to say the prediction that I want to make is that we're gonna probably double marking period 2, and by marking period 4, it wouldn't surprise me if we had 60-70% of the senior class, just because it's just at the rate that it's going, so
It's great, no, I think it's fantastic.
hopefully we're.
I think it's fantastic, I think it's great. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
You can shut us down.
Thank you.
That was great.